Contact. The xenolinguistics lab on Europa Station wasn't much to look at. Cramped quarters, dated equipment, and the persistent smell of recycled air that never quite managed to feel fresh. But for Dr. Maya Kapur, it was home. 6 years into her assignment at this remote outpost orbiting Jupiter's ice-covered moon, she had transformed the sterile space into a nest of organized chaos. Holographic projections of alien writing systems covered the walls. Reference books were stacked in precarious towers, and half-finished cups of synthetic coffee marked the passage of time. Maya tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear as she studied the puzzling patterns on her screen. The signal had been detected 3 days ago, a repeating sequence that didn't match any known communication pattern in the galactic archives. Most of her colleagues had dismissed it as cosmic background noise, but Maya recognized something in those rhythms. Something intentional. "You're still at it." Dr. Nico Reyes appeared in the doorway, his face a mixture of concern and amusement. "It's been 36 hours, Maya." "There's something here, Nico. I can feel it." Maya didn't look up from her display. "The patterns keep shifting, but there's an underlying structure that remains constant, like a language that rewrites itself while maintaining its grammar." Nico sighed. "You always see patterns where others don't. Remember the Centauri transmission that turned out to be a pulsar? This is different," Maya insisted. "And I was right about the Arcturus tablets when everyone else thought they were decorative." Whatever Nico planned to say next was interrupted by the station-wide alert. The overhead lights shifted to red, and Commander Chen's voice came through the speakers with uncharacteristic urgency. "All research personnel to observation deck. First contact protocol initiated. This is not a drill." The observation deck was already crowded when Maya and Nico arrived. Through the massive viewport, the reason for the commotion was immediately apparent. A vessel unlike anything in human records hung against the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling storms. It resembled nothing so much as a fragment of darkness given form, as if someone had cut a ship-shaped hole in reality itself. No visible propulsion systems, no external lights, no recognizable components at all. "It appeared 16 minutes ago," Commander Chen explained, her voice professionally calm despite the historic moment unfolding. "No approach vector detected. It's simply manifested in orbit. We've been broadcasting standard greeting protocols, but there's been no response." Maya stared at the impossible ship. The longer she looked, the more it seemed to shift and change, as if her eyes couldn't quite resolve its true shape. It reminded her of the patterns in the signal she'd been studying. "That's them," she whispered. "That's the source of my signal." Before anyone could respond, the air in the center of the observation deck began to shimmer. Security personnel raised weapons as reality itself seemed to fold inward, creating a doorway where none had existed before. And through this impossible entrance stepped the first representatives of an advanced alien civilization to ever set foot on a human installation. They were tall, at least 2.5 meters, with bodies that seemed both solid and fluid simultaneously. Their skin, if it could be called that, was a deep bluish-black that absorbed light rather than reflected it. Where human features would have been, they bore intricate patterns that shifted continuously, like living equations written in an unknown mathematics. "Voidwalkers," Maya breathed, using the term that would soon enter human lexicon permanently. The lead entity moved with liquid grace, regarding the assembled humans with what might have been curiosity or disdain. It was impossible to tell. When it spoke, the sound bypassed the ears entirely, manifesting directly in the minds of everyone present. "Your species is younger than we anticipated," the thought voice observed, "still bound by physical limitations and linear perception. Interesting, but premature." Commander Chen stepped forward, admirably composed. "On behalf of the United Earth Alliance, I welcome you to Europa Station. Your welcome is acknowledged but unnecessary," the Voidwalker interrupted. "We are not here to establish diplomatic relations with developing intelligences. We seek the interpreters. Our scans detected potential, but now we see it was an error. The dismissal was clear. 6 decades of humanity's careful planning for first contact was being cast aside as irrelevant by beings who clearly viewed humans as little more than clever animals. "What exactly are interpreters?" Maya asked, stepping forward despite Nico's attempt to hold her back. The Voidwalker turned toward her, its patterned face shifting to a new configuration. "You would not understand, young one. Interpreters perceive the language of reality itself, the quantum dialects that define existence. No species at your stage of development has demonstrated such capacity." Maya felt indignation rising within her. "You detected something that brought you here. Perhaps you should investigate before dismissing us." A ripple passed through the Voidwalker's form. Amusement, perhaps. Bold for a species that still thinks in 3 dimensions. "Very well. We will conduct brief assessments before departing." What followed was simultaneously the most exhilarating and humiliating week in human history. The Voidwalkers, as humans now universally called them, established a temporary research outpost on Europa. Their technology defied understanding. Matter reorganized at will, energy drawn from seemingly nowhere, and computational capacity that made Earth's most advanced quantum systems look like abacuses. The assessments proved the Voidwalker's point. Human mathematics was deemed charmingly primitive. Physics understanding was constrained by perceptual limitations. Art was acknowledged as surprisingly evocative for beings with such limited sensory apparatus. Through it all, Maya observed and documented, building a rudimentary understanding of the Voidwalkers' communication systems. Their language was multi-layered, simultaneously conveying meaning, emotion, context, and what she could only describe as quantum state. It was like trying to translate poetry written in 5-dimensional space. On the 7th day, everything changed. A second Voidwalker vessel arrived, and from it emerged 3 entities carrying what appeared to be a crystalline artifact. Unlike the Voidwalkers themselves, the artifact was solid and unchanging, a dodecahedron approximately 1 meter in diameter, covered in markings that seemed to writhe and twist when viewed directly. The lexicon announced the original Voidwalker to the assembled human researchers. "An artifact we discovered eons ago. Many species have attempted to decipher it. None have succeeded. Consider it a benchmark against which you may measure your cognitive development in the coming millennia." Maya felt drawn to the artifact immediately. The markings called to her in a way she couldn't articulate, similar to how she'd always perceived patterns that others missed. Since childhood, her brain had made connections that baffled neurologists and linguists alike. Some called it a gift, others a mild neural divergence. Whatever it was, it had made her the foremost xenolinguist in the solar system. When the demonstration session ended, Maya lingered, studying the lexicon from a respectful distance. The Voidwalker who appeared to be the expedition leader noticed her attention. "You are drawn to it," the thought voice stated. "Many are. None comprehend. May I ask a question?" Maya kept her voice steady despite her awe. When the entity made a gesture she interpreted as assent, she continued, "The patterns on the surface, do they change or are they static?" The Voidwalker's patterned face shifted to a configuration Maya hadn't seen before. "An interesting inquiry. They are neither changing nor static. They are potential." "Potential for what?" "For meaning. The lexicon reveals itself differently to different perceptual frameworks. What do you see, young one?" Maya studied the surface carefully. The markings seemed to respond to observation. They organized differently depending on how I focus my attention. Almost like. She paused, searching for words. "Like what?" prompted the Voidwalker, with what Maya could swear was genuine curiosity. "Like it's trying to find a language I can understand." The silence that followed was profound. The Voidwalker's patterned face became extraordinarily complex, shifting through configurations at dizzying speed. Finally, it spoke, but now addressing its companions rather than Maya. A preliminary response to the quantum layer, unexpected in a pre-singularity species. Turning back to Maya, it asked, "Would you be willing to undergo an assessment?" Before she could respond, Nico stepped between them protectively. What kind of assessment? Our agreement was for non-invasive studies only. Non-invasive, yes, the Voidwalker confirmed, but direct. We would observe while she interacts with the lexicon. Commander Chin, who had been monitoring from nearby, intervened. Dr. Capper is under my authority. I need assurances regarding her safety. No harm will come to her, the Voidwalker stated, but understanding may. That carries its own risks. Maya made her decision. I'll do it. The process was deceptively simple. Maya was seated before the lexicon in a chamber the Voidwalkers had established. No electrodes, no scanning equipment. Just Maya and the artifact, with 3 Voidwalkers observing from a distance. Focus your attention on the markings, instructed the lid Voidwalker. Allow your mind to perceive without imposing structure. Maya did as instructed, letting her gaze soften as she often did when approaching a new linguistic system. The markings seemed to pulse gently, reorganizing themselves as she watched. Gradually, she began to notice patterns, not just in the visual elements, but in how they made her feel. Each configuration triggered subtle shifts in her perception. Minutes stretched into hours. The Voidwalkers remained motionless, watching. Maya lost track of time, absorbed in the dance of symbols that increasingly seemed less like writing and more like equations, mathematical expressions of concepts that existed between thoughts. I can almost, she whispered, reaching out instinctively. Her fingertips brushed the surface of the lexicon, and the world exploded. Reality fractured into layers of information. Maya saw / felt / understood that the markings weren't symbols representing concepts. They were the concepts themselves, expressed in a language that wrote itself directly into the quantum fabric of existence. The lexicon wasn't a book or a database. It was a key, a perceptual tool designed to unlock awareness of reality's underlying structure. For a terrifying, exhilarating moment, Maya perceived the universe as the Voidwalkers did, not as objects in space, but as patterns of probability and information, constantly negotiating their state of being. She saw the quantum dialogues that determined whether light behaved as a particle or a wave, understood how gravity emerged from the conversation between mass and spacetime. Then, darkness. Maya regained consciousness in the station's medical bay, surrounded by concerned human faces and the imposing presence of the Voidwalkers. Her mind felt simultaneously expanded and shattered, as if she'd been shown a library of infinite knowledge, only to have the books scattered across the floor of her consciousness. What happened? She managed. The lead Voidwalker moved closer. Its patterned face had reorganized into something Maya could now partially read, a mixture of surprise, concern, and something she could only interpret as reverence. You responded to the lexicon, it stated simply, the first of your kind to do so. The first of many species to do so without technological augmentation. Commander Chen leaned forward. Dr. Capper has been unconscious for 26 hours. Your artifact nearly killed her. No, Maya countered, struggling to organize her thoughts. It didn't attack me. It recognized me, or something in me. She turned to the Voidwalker. That's why you're here, isn't it? You're looking for minds that can understand the lexicon. Yes, the Voidwalker acknowledged. The interpreters we seek are those capable of perceiving and translating the quantum language of reality. We believe your species millennia away from such capability. Maya felt something stir in her mind, new connections forming, new understanding crystallizing. What happens now? The Voidwalker's patterned face shifted to a configuration that even the other humans in the room could recognize as profound uncertainty. Now, it replied, everything changes. Transcendence. The Voidwalker's research outpost transformed overnight. What had been a modest temporary installation expanded into a complex facility unlike anything humans had ever seen. Additional ships arrived, not just Voidwalkers, but representatives of other advanced civilizations, drawn by news that spread faster than light through quantum communications networks humans could barely detect, let alone understand. Maya found herself at the center of a galactic controversy. The Voidwalkers had designated her as a potential interpreter, a classification that apparently carried significant weight in the broader cosmic community. Some of the newly arrived aliens regarded her with what seemed like reverence, others with obvious skepticism, and a few with what could only be described as fear. The medical bay became her new residence, transformed by alien technology into a space that simultaneously monitored her neural activity and protected her from what the Voidwalkers called informational overload. Her brain was changing, rewiring itself in response to her brief contact with the lexicon. The process was neither painful nor pleasant, just profoundly disorienting, like learning to see in colors that had no names. "Your neural architecture is adapting more rapidly than anticipated," observed Cadex, the lead Voidwalker who had become her primary contact. Maya had given them names for convenience, though she understood names were a concession to human limitations rather than something the Voidwalkers required. "Is that good or bad?" Maya asked, watching as holographic representations of her brain activity danced in the air between them. The patterns reminded her of the lexicon's markings, which now made a strange kind of sense, as if she'd always known this language, but had forgotten it until now. "It is unprecedented," Cadex replied. "Most species require centuries of cognitive evolution or technological augmentation to achieve what your mind is doing naturally. It raises questions." Those questions became the subject of heated debate among the gathered alien representatives. Maya caught glimpses of these discussions, though much of the communication occurred through channels she couldn't yet perceive. Nico, who had appointed himself her guardian and advocate, reported what he learned from more conventional translations. "The Ascendancy Collective believes you're some kind of evolutionary anomaly," he explained during one of his daily visits. "The Quantum Concordat thinks you're the first of a new cognitive species. And the Void Dominion." He hesitated. "What about them?" Maya prompted. "They think you're dangerous. That humanity shouldn't have access to interpreter-level understandings yet. They're arguing for containment protocols, whatever that means." Maya wasn't surprised. The Void Dominion representatives were angular, crystalline beings who communicated through precisely modulated energy fields. Even before her transformation began, she had sensed their hostility, a rigidity of thought that contrasted sharply with the fluid adaptability of the Voidwalkers. "They're afraid," she said simply. "They've built their civilization on the belief that cognitive evolution follows a predictable path. I'm a variable they didn't account for." Nico stared at her. "How do you know that?" "We haven't been briefed on their social structures." Maya frowned, realizing she'd accessed knowledge she shouldn't possess. I'm not entirely sure. Since touching the lexicon, I sometimes know things without learning them. It's like the information was always there, just inaccessible until now." As the days passed, these moments of unexpected insight became more frequent. Maya began to perceive patterns in everything, not just in language or communication, but in the quantum underpinnings of reality itself. She could watch subatomic particles negotiating their positions, could sense the probability waves collapsing into definite states through the act of observation. More concerning to her human colleagues, she started responding to questions before they were asked and discussing concepts that had no names in human languages. "You're scaring people, Maya," Commander Chen told her during a private meeting, 2 weeks after the initial contact. "Half the station thinks you're evolving into some kind of god, and the other half thinks you're losing your humanity." "I'm still me," Maya insisted, though she wasn't entirely convinced herself. "I'm just more. Like I've been looking at reality through a keyhole my entire life, and now someone's opening the door." The door opened wider each day. Maya began to understand the Voidwalkers' technology, not just its function, but the quantum principles that made it possible. She could see how they folded space to travel vast distances, how they manipulated energy states to create matter, how they communicated through quantum entanglement. The lexicon remained at the center of her transformation. Under supervised conditions, she was permitted to study it further. Each session expanded her perceptions, allowing her to access deeper layers of the artifact's encoded knowledge. It's not just information, she explained to Nico after a particularly intense session. It's a method of perception. The lexicon teaches you how to see reality as it actually is, beneath the simplified version our brains construct to make existence manageable. And how exactly is reality? Nico asked, his voice a mixture of awe and concern. Maya struggled to find words. Alive, conscious, everything. Matter, energy, space, time. It's all engaged in a constant dialogue. Nothing exists independently. Everything is defined by its relationships and interactions. The universe isn't a collection of objects, Nico. It's a conversation. As Maya's abilities grew, so did tensions among the alien delegations. The Void Dominion became increasingly vocal about the dangers of allowing a pre-consensus species access to interpreter-level understandings. They demanded that Maya be removed from human custody and placed under the supervision of a coalition of advanced civilizations. The situation reached a crisis point when new Void Dominion ships arrived, positioning themselves in threatening formations around Europa Station. Their demands were clear: surrender the human interpreter or face technological interventions that would effectively end humanity's independent development. Commander Chen called an emergency meeting with representatives from all factions. Maya insisted on attending, despite concerns for her safety. This conflict is about me, she argued. I should have a voice in resolving it. The observation deck, converted into a makeshift diplomatic chamber, hummed with tension. Representatives from 7 advanced civilizations arranged themselves according to incomprehensible protocols of precedence and alliance. The human delegation, consisting of Commander Chen, Nico, and Maya herself, seemed small and vulnerable by comparison. The senior Void Dominion representative, a crystalline entity named in human translation as Axiomatic Resolver, began the proceedings with a direct accusation. The human species has violated natural progression by accessing interpreter-level cognition prematurely, it stated, its perfectly modulated energy fields translating to thought speech. This represents an existential threat to ordered development throughout this galactic sector. Cadex, speaking for the Voidwalkers, countered immediately. Natural progression is not a universal constant. Each species follows its own evolutionary path. The human interpreter emerged naturally without technological intervention. A statistical anomaly that must be contained, insisted Axiomatic Resolver. Their civilization lacks the ethical frameworks to manage such capabilities responsibly. As the debate intensified, Maya observed something the others couldn't see: patterns of quantum information flowing between the representatives, creating connections and conflicts at levels beneath conscious communication. She could perceive the Void Dominion's fear as clearly as if it were written in the air. Not fear of humanity, but fear of change, of disruption to an order they had maintained for millennia. When she finally spoke, she addressed those deeper concerns directly. You believe order precedes understanding, she said to Axiomatic Resolver. But that's backward. True understanding creates its own order, one that emerges naturally rather than being imposed. The crystalline entity vibrated in what Maya recognized as shock. You perceive our conceptual foundations. This confirms our assessment of danger. Not danger, Maya corrected. Difference. Humans don't approach knowledge the way you do. We don't seek to categorize and control. We interpret and adapt. That's why the lexicon responded to me. She turned to address all the assembled representatives. The lexicon isn't just a test or a tool. It's a bridge between different ways of perceiving reality. It doesn't care about technological development or societal structures. It responds to cognitive flexibility, to minds that can see beyond their own limitations. As she spoke, Maya felt something shifting within her, not just understanding but connection. The quantum patterns she'd been perceiving became accessible, manipulable. Without fully understanding how, she reached out with her mind and created a visual representation in the center of the chamber. a multi-dimensional model showing how different cognitive approaches interacted with reality. This is how the Void Dominion perceives, she demonstrated, highlighting a perfectly ordered but rigid structure. And this is how Voidwalkers perceive. The model shifted to show a fluid, adaptive pattern. And this, she continued, creating a new configuration, is human perception. Not superior, not inferior, different, compatible. The chamber fell silent as the representatives absorbed the demonstration. Maya had done what none of them expected. She had translated between fundamentally different modes of consciousness. Kedex was the first to respond. This is what interpreters do, the Voidwalker stated, pattern face showing what Maya now recognized as profound satisfaction. They don't just understand reality. They help different perceptions of reality understand each other. The tension in the chamber shifted. Even the Void Dominion representatives seemed to reassess their position, their crystalline structures reorienting to process this new information. After a long silence, Axiomatic Resolver spoke again. We miscalculated. The human cognitive approach is not chaotic as we believed. It is translational. In the days that followed, a new understanding emerged. Humanity, it seemed, occupied a unique position in the cognitive spectrum of galactic civilization. Advanced species had generally evolved along one of two paths, either toward perfect ordered precision, like the Void Dominion, or toward fluid adaptive awareness like the Voidwalkers. Humans, with their contradictory blend of logic and intuition, pattern recognition and creativity, provided a natural bridge between these approaches. Maya became the first officially recognized human interpreter, but tests revealed she wouldn't be the last. Approximately 1 in every million humans possessed the neural architecture that could potentially interface with the lexicon. Not a species-wide trait, but common enough to establish humanity as a valuable addition to the galactic community. The confrontation ended not with the technological subjugation the Void Dominion had threatened, but with the establishment of Earth's first true diplomatic relations with advanced civilizations. Humanity would develop at its own pace, but with limited access to knowledge previously deemed premature. 1 month after her first contact with the lexicon, Maya stood with Nico in Europa Station's newly expanded observation dome, watching the departure of several alien vessels. "So you're staying with us, mere mortals?" Nico asked, only half joking. Everyone had wondered if Maya's transformation would take her beyond human concerns entirely. "I'm still human," she assured him. "That's the point. My value as an interpreter comes from my humanity, not despite it." She gazed out at Jupiter's swirling storms, seeing both their physical beauty and the quantum dance that created them. "Besides, I'm not the end of this story. I'm just the beginning." "The beginning of what exactly?" Nico pressed. Maya smiled. "A conversation. The universe has been talking for billions of years. Humanity just joined the discussion." As if in response, the lexicon, now permanently installed in a special research chamber, pulsed with new patterns, waiting for the next human mind ready to learn the language of reality itself.